back in August 2005 for my very first visit. And I was subsequently appointed into the position, and I arrived in January in 2006. In fact, I arrived on the 1st of January, New Year's Day, back in 2006. And I was greeted at the airport by members of the council, and that started my 8-year tenure then at St. Paul's. I do remember my first time down in Bonham Road. I was just amazed by how compact the school is. It's one of those big disadvantages I think we've faced over the years. Of course, we do not have a great area of land to work with. And that really does throw up a number of challenges in terms of building projects, renovations. How do you keep improving on the landscape? But the building itself, the structural building, I thought, yes, if we're going to really start renewing and renovating, that's going to be quite a challenge. And I know that, Mr. Ha obviously started this. I managed then to continue through in certain areas. Mr. Ha started the construction of the new South Wing. And then during the early years of my tenure, we took that through to completion. I was delighted that I was able to save the Wong Ming Him Hall because there was a little bit of uncertainty there as to whether that would remain or not with the whole redevelopment, but we managed to renovate and keep the Wong Ming Him Hall. And also, of course, the renovation of the assembly hall and then many other areas around the school. But of course, another major area during that time was the construction, well, the relocation of the primary school from Hill Road down into Pok Fu Lam. That was a major build. And again, the whole concept instigated by Mr. Ha, and then obviously during my time taken through to fruition. I think it's a fine building down in Pok Fu Lam, and I know that the boys are very happy to be out of very cramped conditions there in the Hill Road and to be down in Pok Fu Lam. I have now been the principal headmaster of 6 schools. And I can honestly say that in terms of the students, St. Paul's were by far, the best. I'll put it as simply as that. Absolutely no question. I really enjoyed the relationship with the boys over those 8 years. Either individually or as groups. And I think that's a real credit to the school over many, many years, and long may that continue, that there is a strong student body. I was impressed with their social responsibility. I was impressed by their academic ability. And also I was very impressed with the way that they spoke and represented the school. St. Paul's always came first in their hearts, and my understanding is that has never changed. And regardless of when somebody was at the school, I always said, even if a boy only spends 1 day at the school, to me, he is a St. Paul's alumnus. I say boys, I'm not forgetting, of course, the girls who have also been at the school. But once an SPC member, a student at the school, as far as I was concerned, they are an alum of the school. Because many students over the years, again, times have changed a little bit. Not everyone sees it through all the years at the school, yourself as a case in point. But that's fine. These are choices in life, but I'm sure that that the relationship that a student had with the school, whether they were there for 1 year, 5 years, 7 years, whether they'd come all the way through the primary school, or maybe came through the primary school, more unfortunate not being able to get a position in the high school, they are still they are still alum of the school. And I think that's an extremely important characteristic of St. Paul's. I thought it extremely important that all the students at the school, the boys and the girls, have the opportunity to experience a global perspective. If you're not careful, you can actually be born and raised in Hong Kong without having really that global outlook, that global awareness. And so it was, again, something that was started by Mr. Ha in terms of the global classroom. It didn't start with me. There were already a number of tours over a few years of global classroom programs, but I really wanted to expand that program. It was also very important that these tours were not simply, if you like, let's say recreational holiday tours, where you sit on a bus and you go from A to B, you jump out, take a few photographs, get back on the bus and fall asleep. It was very important to me that these were strong educational tours. And I think we sort of evolved that whole concept of those types of tour, and also to introduce community service tours. So you're going away and actually working for the betterment of the local community wherever you're going. So we did, for example, the eye screening program on the mainland. And Miss Ho was instrumental in the arrangements of that. But again, very important that we are giving back to the community. It's not just St. Paul's boys and girls going away on tours, that they could go with their parents, but they're going with their classmates. There is a real purpose to the tour. Really wanted us to link in with other like schools around the world. And I was fortunate enough when I arrived at St. Paul's to be invited to be the vice president for the Asian region of the IBSC. And so in 2006, that's when I joined the board of the International Boys Schools Coalition. And then in that relationship with other members of the board who are also school principals, headmasters of other boys' schools, we started to establish the links. And I'm delighted, I think over the years now, we've maintained those links. So we have, during my time, the strong links, in particular with schools in Texas, Trinity Pauling in upstate New York, and also Christchurch Grammar School in Western Australia. But there have been others. And again, it's to bring St. Paul's boys into contact with other students in other countries, and again, to start those interrelationships. And we were the first school, the only school when I arrived in Hong Kong. Mr. Ha had actually signed us up for the International Boys Schools Coalition. He may correct me on this one, but I believe it was 2004, maybe a couple of years before I arrived. But we were the only school in Asia at that stage that was a member of the IBSC. And then it was my remit over those 8 years through to 2014 was to build the membership in Asia. And the IBSC now has a number of schools that are now member schools from Asia. So we've really managed to grow the association. I will be frank, when I first came and I mentioned trips into China, there was quite a bit of resistance. Who would want to go to the mainland either to visit and certainly to do community service work? There was quite a bit of resistance there from a number of quarters, but I stuck to my guns on that one and said, no, we must do this. And obviously it's happened and is continuing, which is good.